How's it going, everyone? Today I'm going to be starting a new tutorial to learn Python. We're going to start all the way from the very basics, things such as data types, variables, things of that nature, working our way to data structures and algorithms, then all the way up to real-world applications, um, things such as like web applications and games and things of that nature. So today's tutorial, or sorry, a little bit about myself actually. Um, my name is Austin Accomando. I am currently a software engineer with Amazon.com. Um, I've been working with Amazon for roughly 2 years and some change. Um, so that's just a little bit about myself. Today's tutorial is going to be based on data types. So we are going to be going over the 4 primitive data types in Python. And as I'm sure you can see on the screen, I have kind of typed out a couple different things about like what these data types are, right? So let's start with the first one. I think one of the more basic ones, or well, it's not the most basic, but it's one of the more basic ones, is an integer. And all an integer is a number, right? So as you can see, I have the data types and their names, and then kind of in layman's terms what they mean, and then an example. So an integer, all it is a number. Um, any real number from negative infinity to positive infinity, right? It could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 5, it could be 100. Any sort of number that you can think of is an integer. So moving on to a float. Um, the floats are just numbers with decimals. So the difference between the difference between this and this is just this section tagged onto it. So this number is a float, this number is an integer. So that's really the only difference. And we'll get more into why this differentiation is needed later on in our tutorials. Moving on, the most basic type of data type is a Boolean. And Booleans simply just mean true or false. In Python, this could be true or 1 or anything, really. If it exists, it is true. So let's say I have a number. This is true. As long as it exists, it is true. But just to keep it simple for now, you have either true or 1, or false or 0. And to make this a little bit more readable, I'll do actually this type of thing here. True is also 1, or false, which is also 0, if I'm remembering correctly. Hold on. Oh, we'll get into that in a second. And then the last data type is a string. And all a string is words or characters. And those can be represented in Python through either a word or a bunch of characters in double quotes, or a word or a bunch of characters or single character in single quotes. So you can use strings. Strings can be um, instantiated or created in Python by putting things in double quotes or single quotes. And I'm going to kind of go through a couple of examples here. So let's start off with Boolean, since it is the most simple. So for Booleans, I just want to show you how this works, right? And I'm going to use what's called an if statement. This is something we'll get into in a tutorial, probably one or two videos down the line. So I just want to show you guys how Booleans work, since they are the most basic, right? So if true, print true, else print false. So I just want to show you guys how Booleans work. So this will always return true, right? Because if statements rely on this being true, right? And again, I know this is a little complex if you're completely new starting out in Python, and I'm sorry I'm using it this way. This is really the only way I can think of to really show you how Booleans work. So if true, print true, right? True. So we know that this is true. Else, print false, right? So let's do something here. Let's try and put something here that will make this false. If 1, print true. True. Just like I said, true up here is 1. False could also be 0. So let's see what happens if we put in 0. If 0, print true. False. So as you can see, 0 does not equal true. It equals false. And that can kind of gives you, Booleans also kind of give you an idea of how computers work as well. Computers use what's called binary, right? I don't really know binary all that well, but you know, you'll always see like just a bunch of 1s and 0s. And computers essentially work by referencing these long strings or these long like 1 and 0 strings of numbers. That's essentially how your computer works, right? So Booleans are the building blocks of everything that we're doing here. And strings, they're pretty simple. Hello, right? Or you could do hello in single quotes. As you can see, they both turned orange, so they both register as strings, right? So pretty straightforward there. When it comes to floats, whoa, why did I type the word float? Floats are things like 1.0 or 100.1 or 33.3333 repeating, right, or however you want to represent that. Floats are anything that has a decimal point after it. Even though this is a whole number, this is still considered a float. Whereas if you just type 1, that's an integer, right? And so Python has this cool thing here where you can look at the type of specific things, right? So if I do, I'm going to print out the type of 1. I'm going to see what data type 1 is, right? So if I just click print, as you can see here, it says int, which is short for integer. So now what's going to happen if I'd put 1.0 after it? Print out the type of 1.0. Now you can see that it's a float right here. Okay, so what if I put true? Class bool, which is short for boolean, right? Same thing with false. Now what if I put hello? Print the type of hello. It's a string, right? So these are the 4 main primitive data types in Python. I think knowing these 4 data types and understanding them is key to really learning programming well, like understanding what your data types are. So just kind of get these in your head. A string, or strings, booleans, floats, and integers, right? I think if you know those, it's going to be much easier to learn programming, or to learn Python in this case, after the fact. So yeah, I didn't really tell you guys what I'm coding on right now, mainly because you're not really going to be doing any coding this tutorial. It's just really explaining these data structure, or not data structures, these data types. and like what they are and how to create them, right? So um, the next tutorial will be coding. So I will let you guys know what I'm coding on at the start of that next tutorial. So thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next tutorial.